Well. Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you're all having a fantastic day. Look, this is a brand new one for me. I am coming here live by myself. Well, it's not live. It's recorded. I'm doing it live, but it is not. You will not be hearing this live. But I'm doing this by myself. I thought I tried to speak to George today. He's busy. He's can't do one in the evening because he's got the Leeds game coming up tonight, and he's preparing for that. I don't know really what he's doing. Liam is in Paris. I asked a couple of people, and then I realized my time frames weren't going to work this evening either, so I couldn't really do it a normal time for people. So I'm here on my lunch break, and I kind of wanted to go through some things with everybody today because look, we got it's only going to be a 20-minute podcast, but I want to go through the Liverpool Everton game that we had this yesterday evening. I want to go through 5 subs and what that could mean for the Premier League. I want to go through the Leeds game tonight, just maybe a quick recap on it. I'll go through the fixtures and results for this weekend that's just happened. But I kind of want to, start with the Liverpool Everton game because it was a big game. But before I do, please do follow us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. You'll see me on YouTube. You can find that at The Key to Football, all spelled correctly. And you'll see, like today, I'm actually going to show you visuals of what and how I get some of my stats and where I look for it. And I think it's it'll be good to show you some of this stuff as well, and kind of what what the shapes of the teams were and whatnot as well. Get a bit more into the stats version of it. Look, we're gonna start with Liverpool Everton, and it was 2-0. And who scored? It was a tight game. I'll just start off with that. It was a really tight game, very well, hard fought game, proper derby. It was Robertson in the 62nd minute and Origi in the 85th minute. I don't think that really kind of summed up what the actual game was like, though. If you really look at it, what actually happened was, my first take was Richarlison was an absolute disgrace in the game. I get that there was one part where I think, if you were listening to the commentary, Carragher was saying, "Get up, you're a disgrace." That part I was kind of like, in hindsight, I think you look at it and he was actually rolled his ankle. But let's be honest, he was running fine afterwards. And he was just milking it a little bit, wasn't he? Because, if you're running 10 seconds after, you get your ankle rubbed by the physio, then you're probably all right. And he put that team in a very risky position from doing that. And, I get that he's injured, but, it doesn't help if you're falling over 10 seconds before after doing a header, and you are falling over from, the slightest touches, whether that be a push out or, a 50-50 tackle. You're not helping yourself. It's the boy who cried wolf, isn't it, really? So, look, Richarlison was an absolute disgrace. I've said it quite a few times through this season. He's really I think he's got so much ability, but he must be one of those players that if you're an Everton fan, you probably love him, a bit like a Luis Suarez. But if you are, against him, it's horrible to watch. It really makes you hate the game when you're watching him play, I think. And I'm sure that when I have people on, like when I have George on, he'll defend him because he's a bit of a lover for Richarlison. But I've got to be very honest, I was sick to death of him yesterday. I thought he played horribly. And there was definite plan, and I have no problem with the plan of sitting back and trying to make Liverpool beat you, essentially. And as the kind of commentary was saying, it did remind me of that Chelsea game in 2015, I think it was, where Chelsea just came and sat back and tried to said, "Hey, look, break us down, we'll park the bus, and if you break us down, you win. If you don't, we'll probably hit you on the counter and we'll score." And that's what they tried to do. They played very well. I have no problem with that way at all. Gordon looked like an absolute player, didn't he? Definitely should have had a penalty. That was a push in the back in my eyes. And yeah, it should have been a penalty. But at the same time, you're kind of you're putting yourself in those positions. If you've been booked for diving, and I don't care what he says, if there was contact, that was a dive. He rolled around like, on the floor, like essentially crying on the floor after being tackled, and it was a dive. Like there's no way around it. There might have been contact. It doesn't matter. A dive doesn't have to be just because it's contact. Let's move on. He played unbelievable. Gordon was their best player on the pitch in my eyes. I'll go through some of his stats shortly. But, just incredibly quick. Oh, my word. He gave Trent an absolutely torrid time, didn't he? But just because they had a penalty, I kind of wanted to go into the fact that I don't think that Everton would have won it anyway. I know that there was a lot of kind of hate going on that Liverpool weren't going to break Everton down. As soon as Liverpool went to 4-2-4, which was about 5 minutes after that penalty shout, the game was over in my eyes. We looked like a completely different team. I think the second half we looked better anyway. One thing that I noticed was as soon as the second half came out, Liverpool tried to keep the ball in play the whole time. They stopped going down to that maybe, derby level where they were tackling, making rash tackles. And, as soon as the ball went out, normally what Liverpool do is they wait for Trent to go get the ball, and then Trent will throw it in. What was actually happening was, Thiago would be the closest player to the ball. He'd pick up the ball and he'd do a quick throw in, just keep rolling it. It was really, it was a really noticeable thing, I think, from a person that watches Liverpool week in, week out, that was a complete change in the way we played normally. And I was really impressed by the way we pressed. I thought Everton had a couple of good chances in the beginning of that second half. As soon as we went 4-2-4, we brought on Origi for Mane, who was taken off, and I said he should have been taken off just before half time. He was a bit wild. He was getting very involved in the derby feel. Look, I'm really happy that he wasn't given a red card. I think it would have ruined what was a very good game. But there is an argument that he could have had a red card there. And I'm excited. I was excited that he didn't, because that is just no. Maybe Everton fans would have loved, Everton and Man City fans probably would have loved to have seen us go down to 10 men. And I know how important it is for them. But if you were the neutral there, I'm fairly sure you don't want to just, I don't know, watch a team go down to 10 men when that's what you get from a derby game. You get those physical challenges and a bit of pushing and a bit of to and froing, Richarlison kicking out. I have no problem with that sort of stuff. What I hate is like the diving and whatnot. Anyway, 4-2-4. And as soon as that happened, we overloaded them essentially every time, because they weren't pressing. We didn't need anybody in the midfield because we contained the ball the whole time. So we could actually just keep 4 people up, and then we'd throw in Robertson and we'd throw in Trent down those side parts. Salah was playing really wide, getting the ball and doing one-touch passing, and it was great. I thought we really turned it on, and I think even if Everton had got that penalty, first off, there's no, the penalties are 90% you're going to score, 95%. You're not guaranteed to score it, are you? But I think that I messaged George saying I'm really not worried at all here. I was pretty confident we were going to score. I just don't think Everton was good enough to hold off. And my worry for Everton is that you can get up for those games, right, against Liverpool and Man United. They're big games. But the only team Everton is able to sit back and play that game against, that defensive game, they need points. They can't be sitting back again in their next games. Like, they actually need points. Now, I get that they were doing that because it's Liverpool, and Liverpool would have torched you, and I would have been complaining about the way Everton played if they had, if Liverpool had sunk 7 past them because they didn't play it. So I get that. The next couple of games, they can't play like that. They need to be progressive, and actually, try and beat teams away because they need points. Burnley are playing pretty well at the moment, and they've put Everton and Leeds in a bit of trouble. I'm going to go into some stats of that game. Now, my unsung hero, and I didn't hear it mentioned in the commentary at all. I thought Matip was outstanding, like absolutely outstanding. He had 120 touches, 101 passes, 6 tackles, 2 block shots. You know, he was a monster, absolute monster. He drove with the ball. I think he had like 6. I think, oh, maybe it was like 4 crosses. You know, or 6 long balls. He was really, really good, and he defended really well as well. I'm really surprised he didn't get any. It's probably because he didn't get a goal or an assist, but it was an absolute rock at the back today. Really impressed with him. Him and Van Dijk are, you know, Rolls Royces, aren't they? Really, and I think Konate's been getting a bit of the press recently because he's been getting all those goals. But you know what? In any game, I 100% prefer to have Matip in there over Konate. The person that was mentioned was Robbo. I saw a tweet from Alan Shearer saying, you know, could be in contention for player of the season. I don't really agree with that, but I think he is underrated at the moment. I think Trent gets a lot of the plaudits for him. Robbo was class, 108 touches, 1 goal, 12 crosses, one key clearance. Like, you know, it was pretty much it was going to be a goal if Robbo wasn't there. I think it was, let me just have a look who it was that was going to be scoring. Iwobi, I think it was that was going to be in there for a tap in, who played pretty well actually. Midfield was good. Thiago, Fabinho, and Keita were very good. You know, just consistent. They didn't get as much time on the ball as they did against Man United, but that's, you know, Man United Man United are a big team. They can't really sit back. Not that Everton aren't a big team, but I don't think we have any Everton listeners, so it's all right. Look, best player on the pitch. I actually think the best player on the pitch probably was Gordon. Gordon, look, so the difference between these two teams is that, you know, if you look at it, Matip had 120 touches. Okay, Robbo had 108 touches. Gordon was their best player on the pitch, I think, 41 touches, right? But what he did was he was their go-to, right? So they'd kick it up the field. Maybe him and Iwobi would be doing little 1-2s. 10 ground duels won, Gordon was. So he wasn't just breaking the line. Gordon was absolutely, you know, running at players. He's tackling them. 5 dribble attempts. So he really tried to dribble at Trent, especially. He was cutting in on Trent, weaving between Trent left and right. He created a penalty chance. Again, I agree. It should have been a penalty. It was just lightning quick. I was so surprised, and I don't want that to sound, you know, like I don't really know who he is. I was so surprised. The first time I've seen him up against Liverpool. So that's how I kind of like assess how quick somebody is, seeing how they run against someone like Trent, or how they run against Matip, or you know, even Salah. There was one point where Salah was chasing him back, and he was essentially, you know, going the same pace as Salah. That's how quick he was. He was really quick. I was very impressed with him. Allen. Okay, so this is where the difference is, right? You can have a good player like Gordon, but then you have Allen on the pitch, who, in my humble opinion, it was the worst performance I've seen from a player ever on a pitch. And Allen was shocking. You know, in terms of possession, he couldn't keep it. He touched the ball 22 times, right? And that includes him. He was the person that did all the free kicks. He essentially kicks the ball from the free kicks that they would get. So if there was a foul, he would kick it, right? He had 1 pass completed the whole game. 1 pass completed. He was dribbled past twice, and he lost possession 5 times, right? The guy, look, there was a couple of good blocked shots from him and a couple of clearances, and obviously his goal was not to you know, be the dictator of play and ping balls 70 yards, but you know, if you're a professional footballer and you get 1 pass the whole game, I think like there is something wrong. You could, you know, pass back to your keeper. Look, it was a very important game for both sides. I think Everton are in real trouble now. I still think Everton will get out of it. I have a feeling that Burnley have had their good period now, and I don't know, maybe they've got that new manager bounce and whatnot, but I have a feeling that Everton will get out of this. They've got two more pretty tough games, and then they've got an all right finisher. I just think Burnley's run up is a bit easier, and we haven't even got into Leeds yet, I guess. And Leeds play Crystal Palace tonight, so there is a chance that this all kind of changes today, and the Leeds are really in the fight. But if Leeds win this, I think they're home and hosed. Let me show you the as you can see here, the bottom half of the table, Norwich absolutely done, Watford done. The difference here is Everton are in this bottom three now with 29 points. Burnley 31 points, Leeds 33 points. Now, Burnley have played an extra game, so Everton have a game in hand. But say Everton win that game in hand, right? They go to 32 points, and Leeds lose tonight, 1 point behind Leeds, Everton, right? So Leeds are then in that dogfight. If Leeds win tonight, they go to 36 points, and they actually kind of drag Aston Villa a bit. Aston Villa and Crystal Palace back into it. So big game for both teams. I think the difference here, and what we're going to show is, Leeds, Burnley, Everton. Let's go into it. So Burnley here, last couple of games. So this is Everton, sorry. Everton have Chelsea, Leicester, but then after those two games, it's not as bad. So it's Watford, Brentford, Palace, and Everton. Now, Palace weirdly could be dragged back into it. People aren't really talking about it, but Palace could be kind of dragged back into it if they lose tonight, especially against it. So that game could be a little bit bigger. Arsenal, it's probably coming down to that game for Everton at the end of the season. It's probably going to be the Arsenal, and Arsenal top four, fighting for top four. That'll be massive. Arsenal could actually be fighting for top three. Watford, Everton, massive game. But these two games are very critical. Now, if we look at the Burnley fixtures, here we've got Watford. Burnley have got, the only team that aren't kind of like on the beach really here is Spurs. Spurs are fighting for that top four, but Newcastle are on 43 points. Maybe if Eddie Howe wasn't up for manager of the year, I have no idea. Like that turnaround by Eddie Howe was unreal. Burnley Villa is a big game, because I guess Villa could be dragged back into that if they win both of those. But I don't know. I think Villa will probably. I don't think Villa are going to lose both of those games. So look, very big. But then we go to Leeds, and Leeds actually have a bit of a torrid time. So Leeds play Crystal Palace tonight. That is the biggest 3 points Leeds will get this whole season. And one of the reasons I wanted to do this podcast, because George can't come on and tell us, but essentially I need to let people know tonight that this Leeds' biggest game of the season. Leeds Man City, let's all agree, Leeds aren't getting anything out of that. Leeds Arsenal, you know what, it's probably 50-50. Arsenal are just so inconsistent. Leeds Chelsea, horrendous. Probably not getting points out of that. Leeds Brighton will be on the beach by then, and so will Brentford, right? So these two games are actually not too bad for Leeds, because those two games they'll be on the beach. So I think Leeds will get out of it because of Crystal Palace, Brighton, and Leeds and Brentford. Now, if we go, I'm going to stop sharing, and we're back. So that's why that game is so big tonight. Now, I think the last thing I kind of wanted to get into just before I do the fixtures is the 5 subs. Now, it was brought up on air tonight on air last night that how Liverpool's 5 subs were, that was the difference. That was the key difference to essentially Liverpool winning and losing. Can I just mention that Liverpool only used 3 subs last night? So we used the exact same amount of subs as the other, as normal. So we only used 3 subs. We brought on Origi. We brought on Origi. We brought on Diaz, And then we also brought on, I'm trying to think who the other person was. Was it Jordan Henderson? We brought on Jordan Henderson. So, like, yes, I get that 5 subs is quite big, but I don't think it's as big as everybody does. I think, and this is the reason it's been put through, the 5 subs is done so that players like, this is just 3 players that I'm just thinking of for the Euros. Trent, Henderson, and Maguire can play in the Euros, in the Euros last year. And, as an England fan, that's who we want to watch in the Euros. The 5 subs is so that when it comes to you, the fan, and me, the fan, wanting to watch our favorite footballers week in, week out, that's why we can do it, so that we don't have to risk these players after, say, 3 subs happens and then an injury happens, and either that player has to play injured or we play 10 men down for the last 10 minutes. Now, I get that that's like tactics and whatnot, and you're risking it, but at the same time, I would prefer to just watch my favorite players play week in, week out. And I don't think that 3 subs and 5 subs are going to be used every time. Now, Liverpool were, 2-0 down, 0-0, and they only used 3 subs the whole game. It's the footballers are playing more games than ever, and they're not getting any time off in the off season, really, because of the Euros, because of the World Cups, because of tournaments. Seasons are going longer because of COVID, starting earlier. It's, this year, in the midst of an next year, in the midst of an Premier League season, we have a World Cup being played. Now, if you don't have 5 subs there, and somebody, all of a sudden you go to the World Cup, and I'm just thinking Harry Kane's been played 9 games in a row and had 4 days break in between each game, and then has to go to a World Cup, and he can't be subbed off because I just think it's we as the fans get to watch our favorite players play week in, week out, and it's just my opinion that that's a really good thing. Like the argument, I guess, the argument I know is that it is unfair for teams like Liverpool and like City that get the advantage, but you don't, they do get an advantage because they have a bigger squads and they have better players. However, there's 2 things just to combat that. And I know I won't convince everybody here, but you don't play those 2 teams every week. So when you're not playing those 2 teams, when you're playing Burnley and you're Leicester, 5 subs is pretty good. Or if you're playing Leicester and you're Burnley and one of your players gets injured, you have 5 subs. I'm sure that you would rather have your best players play when you are playing those teams, and unfortunately, it's not going to happen if we don't have these subs. I don't know if I explained that very well, to be honest, but I thought I would try and give it up. I know that probably Liam and George both hate the 5 subs rules, so I'll hear about it tomorrow when we do the next podcast, but nice to have a little bit of a me time, right? I'm just going to quickly go through the scores. Arsenal 3, United 1, massive game. Tavares, Saka got a penalty, Xhaka got a goal, and Ronaldo, good on him, he got a 34th minute goal. 3-1 puts the Arsenal in the driving seat for that 4th spot. Actually puts them in a pretty good spot to get 3rd as well. I thought that was done and dusted. Leicester 0, Villa 0. Pretty good result for Villa, if you're honest. Away from home, getting that 0-0. Get rid of that losing streak. I think they had 4 games on the bounce. City absolutely spanked Watford. I saw some stat that it's the most games consecutively won by a team against another team in the English flights. I think it was like 18 or 15 or 18. I can't remember what the exact number was in a row that they'd won. I think it was 15. Jesus got 4 goals. Wow. Rodri got 1, and Kamara got a goal for Watford, but who cares? That game was over before it started. Didn't even bother watching or keeping up to date with that score. Norwich 0, Newcastle 3. As I've said, Eddie Howe, manager of the year. Joel Linton up for most improved player of the year. And Gamares, Bruno get 1. Brentford 0, Spurs 0. Spurs, what are you doing? Let's just say Liam was completely right in the last podcast, and Spurs are so inconsistent. Brighton 2, Southampton 2, Welbeck, Salisu, Ward-Prowse with 2 goals as well. What on earth? Ward-Prowse, how are you not in the England squad? Burnley 1, Wolves 0. Vidra getting the crucial 1-0 win against Wolves, putting Burnley out of the relegation zone. Chelsea 1, West Ham 0. Pulisic getting a 90th minute goal, and Dawson, who was going to be man of the match, getting sent off in the 86th minute. And then Liverpool 2, Everton 0, Robertson and Origi. Please do let me know how you found this podcast, everybody, because it was interesting for me. I've never done a solo one before. A bit nervous about it, to be honest, but here we go. Have a good evening, everybody. Bye.